IVM.
I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I am your peak performance coach and leadership coach, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, in your relationships, professions, and most importantly, your life. So let's thrive, grow, and evolve together, one episode at a time. Oh, poor me. Life is against me. No one loves me. My boss is giving me the hardest time. He's so unfair. No one understands me. This is so unfair. That is so unfair. Life is so unfair. Be cautious the things you say because you never know when you're actually falling prey to the victim mentality. It could be your coworker, your spouse, your best friend, or it could be you. Victim mentality is when you're constantly blaming people, situations, and challenges in your life for your life. Whether they're responsible or not doesn't even matter. You're just constantly feeling happy about blaming people. That feeling that everything is unfair, everyone is unfair, and life is unfair is what you thrive on. You're constantly looking at life through this lens. That's all things bad, and bad alone. You're simply focusing on problems and seeing all the negatives in your life, and especially those which are beyond your control. You expect sympathy, and you think you deserve better. But guess what? It's actually your way of making excuses and avoiding responsibility for your life. You believe you have no power, so there is no need to take any action. You keep bringing all the attention to yourself with all the possible problems and do nothing about it except brood. That's what victim mentality looks like. So what do you do? How do you break this cycle and get out of that mentality that consumes you and those around you? Like most behavioral patterns, victim mentality is a learned behavior. It can be traced back to your childhood. So it's important to retrace your steps and understand the root cause. It is very likely that you went through something that made you feel this way. But it is also likely that you didn't have any childhood trauma and you adapted to this pattern because it probably got you attention at work or in your relationship, and it may have helped you get away with things. That's right. You probably had no childhood trauma. It could be attention seeking, it could be sympathy, it could be getting away with things, it could be excuses or running away from responsibilities. So it is important to understand and retrace those steps. If you are one of those people in denial about this, try help yourself through a little open-mindedness and observation. Let's call it spot check. When I say spot check, I mean asking yourself some questions or reflecting on some questions and seeing what answers you come up with. That can help you understand whether you're in the direction of this victim mentality, you're already suffering from it, or you're not. Like, do you constantly bicker and talk about all your problems with people? Do you overshare your problems and pretend like you're always in trouble? Do you find yourself cursing someone or life in general, or anything and everything that happens to you? Do you find someone to blame for it, someone to curse for it? Do you find people to blame for your situations even more when it is your fault? So you take away the fault from yourself and you want to blame somebody else. Do you always find somebody to do that? Do you think bad things are constantly happening to you? So why try making it better? Just go with the flow and let the bad things happen, and let's keep talking about all the bad things and life will just go on. It's important that you do the spot check in order to understand how you think. And once you know how you think, once you can reflect upon it, you can internalize that experience and actually make the changes you need to make. Next up is journalize. Now, that's not much. Just write something that's good about you and something good you did or achieved at the end of the day. It could be as small as trying to smile or helping solve a problem for a friend or coworker or spouse or your kids, or not making a conversation entirely about you. Sounds easy, but it could be slightly difficult. So if this sounds tedious to you, then go on with an act of kindness or a meal you cooked. Just say, I cooked a meal today, it was really delicious. Or I helped my friend today and it went really well. They took my advice. Or today I didn't talk much about my problems. I spoke about other things. I spoke about good things or positive things. It could be anything. Validate yourself every day and practice gratitude. And for that, just journalize. Accountability. These are your red flags. When you catch yourself spiraling into the blame game or making excuses for your incompetencies or brooding over something from the past, stop. You see that little red flag in front of you. Stop and rephrase your thoughts. Change your thoughts. Rewire your thinking in the moment. So create some nice sentences that you're going to say to yourself when you see that little red flag. For instance, I'm good enough. I am doing well. I'm working on myself. I am progressing. I am fully responsible. I am going to rise above this. Just say anything that works for you and use it when you see that little red flag waving at you. If you find this hard to do by yourself, then find someone who you can trust and who can possibly point out these little red flags to you. Now, mind you, when you put somebody in charge and somebody holds you accountable for it, it can get frustrating, but be patient because this is extremely effective. Set a time to whine. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it is important. Now, you've been doing this all day, so it is slightly difficult to completely stop. So don't worry. Let's take baby steps here, all right? Set a time in the day about anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes where you can express your misery, blame whoever you want, cry and shout about how unfair everything is, and do whatever you've been doing. But whatever time you set is the only time you get. So better keep that in mind. Also, if you are exhausted from listening to someone who suffers from this mentality, then it's important for you to set a time span for how long you're going to listen to them and find ways of possibly changing the topic or excusing yourself. But here you've got to be careful. Do not label them as a victim there. Instead, say, we talked about this before, or I'm aware of this, or I know this happened to you. You've already told me about it. So what's for lunch or what's for dinner? Or what are your plans later tonight? Try and change the topic or allow them to know that you already know. So yes, set a time to whine. Forgive. Forgive people. Forgive yourself. Just forgive. I know it isn't easy and I don't expect you to do it all together, but forgive so you can let go of that burden that ruins your life. That baggage you carry, just let it all go one step at a time. Forgiveness does not mean that you want people back in your life or the damage they've done can be changed, but forgiveness definitely means that no one and nobody is big enough to ruin your life for you. So move on. Leave all that baggage behind and just move on. And lastly, seek help. If you cannot do this by yourself, seek help. It is absolutely amazing what just talking to someone can really do to change your mindset. So if you're suffering from the victim mentality, or you have someone around you suffering from it, and you're suffering because of their victim mentality, seek help or try these little tools. And let's understand this and understand it well. Not everyone who has been a victim has a victim mentality, and not everyone with a victim mentality is a victim. Let that sink in. Be safe, be well, be empowered.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I would like to thank the sponsors of the network this week, Cred, Ciet, and PayPal. Thank you so much. You make everything possible. Before I recommend a couple of episodes, I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit about Ankush Champanerkar. Ankush was a team member who we lost due to COVID-related complications. He was a really fun guy, and I wish I knew him better than I got to know him in the short time he was with us. But I hope that you can remember him in your thoughts and prayers. Also, quick reminder about Pod for Change, the initiative set up by the podcasting community, along with Give India, the NGO partner. You can go to tinyurl.com/podforchangeindia, and I'm sure that it would be much appreciated any donations that you could give. With that, let me quickly give you a couple of highlights from this week. Aditi Mittal was on Cyrus Says. Great episode, do check that out. On the Habit Coach, Ashton talks about using the word impossible and suggests some better alternatives. On Advertising is Dead, Varun was joined by Harsh Lal, the co-founder of the Soul Store. On This Round is on Me, Gauri talks to Pankit Desai, who is the co-founder and CEO of Secure Tech. And finally, I'd like to mention that we have a new show called Tere Mere Raste, hosted by Keshav Chaturvedi. This time it's a trip to the beautiful blue city of Jodhpur, but every week he's going to tell you about his travels as a photographer. It's really well put together, really well done. I couldn't be more excited about the show. Please do definitely check that out. And with that, I hope we see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset, and everything sport.
So tune in to the Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.